So am I getting further? Is everyone getting me?
A little higher, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Scene, take one. Scene one, take one. Copy mark.
I am William McNichol, and I am the owner and lead designer for William Frederick. We are a clothing brand based in Cleveland, Ohio, and I started the clothing brand in 2018. And since then, we've released biannual collections. So we do a spring, summer, and a fall, winter collection. And we're here in the studio and showroom where all of the clothes are made in this building as well. I reached a point when I was 29, I knew I was turning 30 the next year, and I found that I didn't have much purpose for my corporate work that I was doing. It was more so just for financial stability. I think the thing I'm most proud of is the fact that I've never left Cleveland and I've never looked elsewhere for where the clothes could be made. At times it's been very difficult to do that here, but I've stayed true to kind of the message and the value of the brand and the mission to kind of restore the garment manufacturing industry here. And instead of going to New York or LA physically or making my clothes there, I've stayed here, kept my footprint in Cleveland, and I've also, instead of leaving, I've focused on resolving the problems here and trying to build an infrastructure and a foundation for where it can actually have room to grow here. And in addition to that, I would say most proud of just the learning from each collection. I've learned how to actually run a profitable business where at one point it was just bleeding money, and everything that I did essentially for 3 or 4 years was losing money. So now the fact that I've been able to problem solve and actually operate a business would be something that I would be proud of. When I started playing around with the idea of starting my own brand, a few of my friends, I would say like 3 or 4 of them, pushed me to go, take some of my sketches, find a pattern maker, and start developing product at that time, and started working with the idea of taking a sketch to something tangible with a physical product. And once I decide on a fabric, I then try to figure out which silhouette that would work best for. And at this point, over 5, almost 6 years now, we've developed essentially our core silhouettes for shirting, trousers, and jackets. So I also have experience of running these 2 times a year, and I know what fabrics will work best for each silhouette. So sometimes we will let the fabric guide us if we want to see a different method for suiting. It's almost done a 180 from taking a sketch and then sourcing fabric to now taking the fabric and creating from there. We do have a production manager. Her name is Amanda. She's actually a Kent State graduate. She's been a production manager for almost 11 years. She's very experienced. Essentially, the process begins with her taking my order, reviewing the quantities, and then from there she stacks the fabrics, she cuts the fabrics, and then she comes up with her own schedule and coordinated plan, and then communicates that to her team. And then they figure out what will take the longest, and they generally start by working with the items from my production order that will take the longest. And from there, we do so on 2 single needle Juki machines downstairs. And then we also have a serger, a buttonhole machine. Essentially, everything is handled by Amanda from a finishing standpoint, but the sewing team does do a lot of the construction from there. The main thing from what separates us from other brands would be the fact that we do take the time to French seam all of our finishings for our shirts, which is it's not that common in the industry. Some other brands do it, but I would think that would be the one thing. The French seaming is what stands out downstairs in the factory as well as for the brand. If we do use a zipper, we do use Riri, which is a brand from Switzerland that I have found to be my favorite brand of zippers. For the buttons, we use all natural fibers. So we use almost exclusively Carozo buttons, which are made from a nut in Brazil and then manufactured in Italy, and they have a lifetime warranty. If you're thinking about sustainability, Carozo, something with a lifetime warranty that is origin from a nut in Brazil. And then we also use mother of pearl buttons and then genuine horn. So those are the 3 series of buttons that we use on any product for our finishing. And the challenges now that we're facing are we're now in 4 stores. So they're placing their orders in advance, which is increasing our production in numbers. It's probably 4 to 6 times the amount of clothing that we're producing now that we were a year ago today. They're ordering multiple sizes in multiple styles. So now there's some things where I'm producing 6, 7, 8 things per size. So there's challenges there just in terms of figuring out exactly how much yardage to buy for these larger orders. And then also that imposes a different type of challenge on the factory as well, because now handling much higher quantities than they were before. So I think we're actually in real time resolving a lot of those problems and figuring out the best way to do that. Yeah, so post-production immediately begins with anytime something is finished downstairs, I handle the quality control myself. So I just review the stitching, the construction of every garment myself. And we're still handling relatively small quantities, so I'm able to do that without too much, added pressure or time. And then once I review something, I do generally hang it up here in the studio, put it on a rack, review it again. And it goes from everything, putting buttons through buttonholes multiple times, making sure all of the buttons are in place, from stitching, making sure that, turning everything inside out, making sure that nothing was missed, nothing's sewn too tight, too loose. So after the quality control process is in place now, what we'll be doing is packing up orders for the stores, where before it was more so focused on keeping them on racks, inviting people in, saying we have new items, and then inviting people into the showroom and the studio here to shop the collection. But we do shoot a lot of our campaign and contents here in Cleveland, and we do shoot all of our e-com here in studio, just to try to create, a feel for what the studio exists as and what it looks like. And I think it just helps when people walk in as well. They're like, oh, they've seen this online. So the main thing we'll be focused on for the remainder of the year, in addition to creating our spring, summer, and fall, winter collections, will be footwear. And we're working slowly right now with a mill in Italy to develop 2 new styles of footwear. And we are working on the sampling process right now. So the prototypes and the molds have been created. And then over the next month or 2, we should receive samples in the mail, which we ideally will be done in time for the lookbook, so we can include those in our spring, summer lookbook. And then if that all goes well, we'll be adding a 3rd style, which would be more of a utility boot with a Vibram rubber sole, where the other 2 would have leather soles that would be, not, you could wear them daily, but it wouldn't last as long as a Vibram or a rubber sole would. So we do want to have one offering that people can wear on a daily basis and beat up over time, and it'll last them years. And then in addition to that, we will be doing our 2nd coffee release this year. So outside of clothing, those are the 2 things that I'm mostly focused on. I would say the most memorable moment for the brand, most of my friends especially, because they were there and they modeled, would be the fact that we showed on the New York Fashion Week calendar. And I believe we were the first brand ever from Cleveland to show officially on the calendar. So at that time, I just, there was a point of pride in being able to take the brand to that type of a stage. And I just think the fact that all of my friends who modeled in that and were a part of it, that made it more special for me. So I think if I were to look back on something that was memorable, not only for myself, but for 20 other people or so, it would be the 2 times we showed at New York Fashion Week. And in addition to that, we've done shoots where 12 of us go down to New Orleans and we rent an Airbnb and we shot in New Orleans. We've done the same in New York. So it's just anything that makes it feel a little bit more like a community to me, where my friends are participating in it, and it's not just a transactional or a financial business need. And it extends beyond that, where it feels like it's something more than just clothes or photos or selling. That's really where I derive the most value from a memory-focused experience. The thing I would want customers to take away from is they can tell that thought went into it, that whoever made these clothes cared. I think that's the thing that is really, really meaningful to me. And again, even with like the French seaming on the shirt, I think when you open a shirt and you see that, you can tell that someone went a little bit further than normal because they care. And I think people, when they touch the textiles and the fabrics, they identify that as well. So I just hope that it's, when people walk away, they can tell that someone was thoughtful and they cared about what they made. And and then hopefully they wear it a lot and they can see over time that it lasts for them. And I think the other thing that I'm thinking about when I make clothes is I want people to be able to rely on the clothes that I make.